You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. It's great to have you with me here today on this Motivation and Mindset Monday show. Looking forward to getting into what will hopefully be a great episode. Looking forward to speaking to you about a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. The reason is this, is that for well over, I would say, 20 years of my life, I suffered with debilitating insomnia, which means it would take me 2, 3, 4 hours to fall asleep. And that was a good night. A good night was 2 hours. Some nights I would simply never fall asleep. And this happened all throughout my early childhood, teenage years, and into my early 20s. And then I was able to overcome that. But along with that was no energy, just zapped energy when I eventually got what's called Addison's disease, POTS, and a few other things that come along with that. But here's what happened. All of those things have been rebalanced. All of those things no longer are dis-eases of my body. But I know what it's like, whether you have a dis-ease or not, to not have any energy and to also wake up tired. Because when you wake up tired, you don't have a lot of vitality for the day. It's going to be hard to have a lot of ambition or drive or want to do anything with your life. And that means that current day in front of you. So what I want to do today is really go over some of the things that absolutely helped me for sure. I'm going to give you links to previous podcasts where I've gone in depth on how to fall asleep faster, how to stay asleep, how to reset your sleep cycle, all of those different items. But we have to look at two things today. So first is we're not going to go over the why you can't sleep. I can absolutely point you towards the show on how to reset it and the 3 reasons why you might not be sleeping, right? That was way back in episode 122 of the Cabral Concept. Today, if you want to go to stephencabral.com/1102, 1102, you will find the links for all these previous sleep shows as well. Anytime you want to find a podcast, you want to search the database, just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts. So what I want to focus on today is this. We need to begin to re-energize our life. I love eating good, healthy foods. I love talking about great nutritional supplements. I love talking about all other types of biohacks, right? Natural ones. But there's no better one than getting good quality sleep and allowing your body to rejuvenate and restore itself over those 8 hours that you should be in bed. Now, I know some people can only get 7 because of work and because of family and because of all sorts of different things. Well, here's what I've come to see in my practice over many years. Some people need a little bit more sleep than others. Here's why. If you're going harder during the day or you're more of that Vata-based body type and mindset, your body needs more recovery time. If you're not going as hard during the day, you typically need a little less recovery time, more of the endomorph, right? And here's the interesting thing, though. That can change where we're at in our life. And oftentimes, we're at our most stressed and we're pushing ourselves the hardest. We feel like we don't need any sleep, right? Like we're good on 4, 5, 6 hours a night. But that always catches up with people. And the reason is that, yes, you don't feel like you need all that sleep because you are in overdrive. You're pushing those adrenaline levels. You're pushing those cortisol levels. And you feel like Superman or Superwoman, right? But eventually you crash. I want to help you before that crash comes. And if you've already crashed, we need to reset the body. So what I'll do is, again, I will link those up. I'll just go over them right now, and then we'll get right into today's show. On episode 122, I did a show on the 3 reasons why you can't sleep. And I went over the nervous system. I went over cortisol. I went to do what to do about all of those. That was tremendous for me in helping to reset my body. Episode 234 was resetting your sleep cycle. Crucial, right? Resetting your sleep cycle at the proper time. 592, on all sleep tips. 685, love this show. This was an Ayurvedic show on basically the Ayurvedic body clock, right? Your body's clock during the day, when to wake up, when to sleep, when to exercise, when to eat. I love that show because I love talking about Ayurveda. More shows. A lot of people have been asking for more Ayurvedic shows. There'll be absolutely more in the queue, without a doubt. I just have so many topics backlogged that I want to get to that the Ayurvedic ones have just kind of moved to the side just for a moment. That's all. Because there's a lot of topics that I feel that are pertinent and that I keep seeing the questions over and over in Cabral Support Group. So maybe I can't answer every single question, but I love reading the questions and I love being able to integrate those into shows. So when people ask me, we're on episode 1102, like, how do you do a daily show? Well, it's that I love talking health and fitness. I love seeing what people are struggling with, not because I love to see the struggle, but because I want to offer just experience that I have in this, that I've seen work, right, from a clinical practice. So there'll be no shortage of topics ever, especially with all the reading I love to do as well. I get a lot of different perspectives that way. And the last show is episode 864 on how to fix your sleep cycle. So that was one I loved. It goes over lab testing. It goes over nutritional supplements. It goes over all sorts of things, light-based therapy. So I'm going to give you 7 tips today to really wake up with energy, right? So never wake up tired again. I want to go over that. Now, before I get into today's show, there's 2 labs that you can run. So there's the sleep and stress-based test. That's a great one. It shows your melatonin levels being produced, and it shows your cortisol levels being produced. But there's also a very comprehensive one if you feel like you have no energy either. So if you can't sleep and you have no energy, run the thyroid adrenal hormone. If you just can't sleep, run the stress and sleep-based lab. Those are amazing. We'll link those up today at stephencabral.com/1102. That'll be the hub today for all of the show notes and links. Okay, so here's what we need to think about first. And I haven't gone as depth about this, so I just want to talk about this for a moment. Your body gets deep rejuvenating sleep. What does that mean? Well, it means this, that your cells and all of the tissue and everything in your body begins to repair at a much deeper level when you're in your deepest levels of sleep. So how does that happen during the night? Well, we know this because we've studied it now in science, and we know that the body goes through 75 to 90-minute sleep cycles during the night. And you actually may know this because if you've ever had a baby under the age of, let's say, 8 months to a year or so, their sleep cycles are actually about half of that. So there's about 40 minutes. And so if you've had a baby that's not the best sleeper, they kind of in and out every 40 minutes. Well, adult sleep cycle is twice that. So we're looking at about 90 minutes. And again, it varies per individual, but it doesn't vary widely within 15 minutes, 75 to 90 minutes. And you can absolutely track these things. There's no doubt about it. You can use sleep rings. You can use sleep watches. You can use a pad under your body that does all of those. I don't recommend those for the long term because there are EMFs involved. But without a doubt, I've been tracking my sleep. This goes way back. 2005, I remember having my first sleep tracking watch way back in the day when this wasn't well known, but it was great. And it showed me, am I getting into my sleep cycles? How restless am I? How often am I moving? Okay, so it's great. You know, without a doubt, you can do that. So, and I'll talk about more of those gadgets in the future, but we need to think at a macro level, at a holistic level, not just the gadgets, but at a holistic level. The gadgets help us, but only if we know what we're after. So here's what I want you to think about, because my end goal is not to help you sleep better. My end goal is to energize you with life so that you can go out there and accomplish everything you want with your life. But I know it's hard to do that if you don't have the energy. I pushed through it in my 20s. But it was more difficult because I didn't have the energy. I stayed at status quo. Sure, I was reading, I was studying, I was doing all of those things in my early 20s because I was still dealing with debilitating autoimmune, fatigue, energy-based, mitochondrial, digestive issues, etc. It was not good, right? So I wasn't accomplishing a lot then. I was kind of like accumulating knowledge, which is good. There's no doubt about it. But I didn't have the ability to really move forward with a lot of action because there wasn't a lot of energy. But what I could sit down and do was read. And so I had a passion for that. But here's what I want you to think about as well. We get those 75 to 90-minute sleep cycles. Well, think about it. How many are you going to get in a night? Well, for the most part, science shows us we're going to get about 4, maybe 5 of those per night. That's a great thing. But here's what happens. Too many of us, because of When times in women, there's estrogen dominance that can be an issue, especially at night, especially premenopausal, menopausal. We also have thyroid-based issues. That could be with Graves or Hashimoto's or just hypothyroidism that doesn't allow us to get in that best sleep. We have higher levels of cortisol at night, which often means then what? Well, the inverse of adrenaline and cortisol is melatonin. So if your cortisol levels are high at night because you're stressed, you have anxiety, you're worried about the next day, too much caffeine earlier in the day, etc., you are going to have lower levels of melatonin, which means you're not going to get into those deeper sleep cycles. What if you have gut issues? What if you have all sorts of inflammation in the gut, IBS-based issues? Well, you might not be producing as much B vitamins, which help buffer stress. They also help with energy. You actually need energy to fall asleep. Believe it or not, I know it's funny, but you need energy to switch energy systems. And serotonin. Serotonin's that unsung hero that helps with, well, it helps with obviously production of melatonin. I shouldn't say obviously, but if you don't have enough serotonin, you're not going to have enough melatonin. And if you don't have enough melatonin, because it gets recycled back to serotonin as well. So serotonin is that happy, feel-good, relaxation-based neurotransmitter. We need B vitamins for it, namely B6, but we also need to be able to convert it in the gut so it can eventually make its way through the body into the brain as well. So you can look at it that this is truly a holistic-based system. So the goal is to get in a deep rejuvenating sleep where we get DNA cellular repair. We get that body's repair of hair, skin, muscle tissue. Really, anti-aging helps with this overall cycle. So my goal for people is to say the only way we're going to get those 4 to 5 sleep cycles, deep sleep cycles per night, is to get in bed and stay in bed for about 8 hours, okay? So it's crucial. Now, if you have a disease, I say dis-ease of the body, meaning like you have an autoimmune-based issue, you have myalgic encephalomyelitis, you have Addison's, you have low cortisol, you have any lows, right? If you feel wiped out, if you feel tired, you do need more sleep. You need more than the 7.5, 8 hours. And I do recommend being in bed around 9 hours, if possible. Sometimes you can't. And we'll talk about that more in the future. I'll absolutely do some shows on ME. I've done already shows on ME and chronic fatigue syndrome before. I've done a lot of shows on how people kind of put it down in the media and all that, but it is a real thing. Now, talk about putting it down. When I had it over 20 years ago, it was certainly put down. But, when I was eventually diagnosed with Addison's disease, then it's not because it's considered a disease. But what if you're like a few points away from Addison's disease? Then it's like, okay, well, it's not really there. Of course it's there, right? There are just levels to this. And it actually has to do with what's called hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis regulation. So there's a real, it's called pathophysiology to this dis-ease of the body. But we need to be in bed. We need to be in bed earlier. This is key. And I'm going to get into this in just one moment. Because people think you can get 8 hours any time of the day. It's actually not true. So let's talk about this right now. We know we want our 4 to 5 sleep cycles per night. We know we want to get to bed as quickly as possible. Again, I couldn't fall asleep for hours. Why? Couldn't shut off my mind. I could not shut down my mind. My adrenaline was going too much. My cortisol was going too much. And I just couldn't calm it down. Now, I have someone come to me, whether they're a kid like I was or they're an adult, we can help them shut off that mind with the deep sleep protocol that we have, as well as taking Adrenal Soothe at dinner. We can shut that off, within, the same day, if not a week or two, right? So we're helping to rewire that sympathetic nervous system. A little full spectrum magnesium at dinner, the Adrenal Soothe at dinner, and then the deep sleep protocol before bed. But that's nutritional supplements, and that's great. You use that in the short term in order to reset your circadian rhythm in the long term. Now, here's the biggest misnomer, is that people believe that they can get 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours any time of the day. It's actually not true. Now, I have a lot of people that write in that are firefighters, that are nurses for the most part, working an overnight shift, or they work in law enforcement, and again, they're working an overnight shift. There's nothing that either one of us can do about that. So I get it. I totally get it. And what I tell them to do is simply create a nighttime-based environment for 8 hours of the day. So I have a lot of people who, just last weekend on the Cabral house calls over the weekend where I answer people's questions in the podcast, someone wrote in, they were a nurse, they work from 7 to 7. Okay, if you work from 7 to 7, 7 at night to 7 in the morning, okay, get home. And now if you haven't eaten, you're going to eat. You're going to then, maybe you shower, maybe you don't. It would be a warm shower, something calming, or maybe a warm bath. And then an hour and a half, 2 hours or so, once you get home, you've already had your food. You're going to create then your own nighttime. I mean, you have to. You have to be able to get that body into a rejuvenated state. Is it ideal? No, it will never be ideal, and here's why, okay? But again, you have to do your best because life's not perfect, right? And hopefully then eventually you get some seniority in your position and you could work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is not how humans were meant. So there's so many people out there saying, and they've written books, that humans, there's different circadian rhythms with people. There's not. There's only one circadian rhythm. There's only one circadian rhythm. That's it. There's only one. Now, you can show me lab tests showing people producing higher levels of cortisol at night. And you can say, oh, well, this person has a different circadian rhythm, which means just the time that they go to bed and the time they wake. And see, because they're producing this in a lab test. No, that's a dysfunctional circadian rhythm. That is a dysfunctional diphasic rhythm. We see that all the time. It's been written about by Hans Selye, by Dr. Roger Williams, for people for over 50, 60 years. This is not new. Talked about in Ayurveda 6,000 years ago. So what are we saying? Well, we're saying this, is that people misproduce cortisol later in the day because of stress, okay? Now, the stress can come from gut issues, work, life, emotion. It can come from viruses. It can come from parasites, which are mainly nocturnal. We'll talk about how humans are not nocturnal in just a second. Or it can come from some type of toxicity, right? Going to bed too late. So here's what true science shows, that the body dips into its lowest amount of cortisol, its lowest level of cortisol, about 9:30 p.m. That will change based on the season. As the light stays out longer during the summer months, at least where I am here in Boston, you'll be able to go to bed a little bit later, right? You'll actually need less sleep during the summer. And the reason is we have more sunlight. We're more energized, typically. Most people are. During the winter, it's a different season. It's a different phase. We're going to get a little bit more sleep. But studies do show 9:30 p.m. That's your lowest point. When should you be in bed? By 9:30 p.m. Is that realistic for everyone? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. But that's the ideal, right? So get to bed somewhere between 9 and 10 p.m. At 10 p.m., the body actually does begin to get a little bit of not a spike. It begins to raise cortisol slightly. People say they get a second wind between 10 or 11 p.m., and they do some of their best work then. Yes, but that is not the prime hours. Here's why. Let me just show you why. When cortisol is at its lowest, melatonin is begin to rise. It's an inverse ratio. I wrote about this. I showed graphs of the studies in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect. So I've gone over that. I showed you the graphs. Here's what happens. Melatonin is one of our best anti-cancer hormones in our body. It puts us into a deep sleep. It rejuvenates and begins to rejuvenate everything in the body. It helps to signal more of the parasympathetic nervous system. If you don't shift into it, you are missing out on those healing properties. And it's also signaled by darkness. Why? Because humans are not nocturnal. You can see in the dark, but just barely. And you can't see in the pitch black. So if you are in the pitch black, you're not going to be able to see very far in front of you. Well, there are many predators in nature, a lot of them being true carnivores, that can see in the dark. And as a human, before our civilization, you would absolutely be huddled together with your tribe, your group of people for safety, and you would be tucked away because you're not nocturnal. You don't hunt at night. And you can't do anything at night. It's not productive. So you're going to bed. Remember, you don't have any Wi-Fi. You don't have any light. You don't have electricity. And you don't even have fire. Okay, so what are you doing when it's pitch black? Absolutely nothing. You're going to bed. Plus, what don't you have when the sun starts to shine in the morning and it starts to get light out? You don't have any shades. You don't have any blinds. There's no drapes. There's nothing to block out the sunlight, right? What does that mean? It means you are waking up. You are waking up within 30 minutes of that sun rising. Why? Well, as we start to get that blue light, right? As we start to get that blue light, it signals to stop melatonin production, begin to increase cortisol. Cortisol naturally peaks out, naturally starts to rise around 4 a.m. Guess what? So does thyroid. Healthy thyroid turns up what? Your metabolism. So when we look at these things, we know that humans then peak out in cortisol between 6 and 8 a.m. So it's also why, though, If you're suffering from fatigue-based issues, I do recommend getting up by 8 a.m. I recommend getting up and not missing your window for peak cortisol when your energy levels should be starting to get at their highest. So what do I recommend? Well, I recommend then counting back 9, 10 hours from between 6 and 8 a.m., especially if you need more rejuvenation. You want to get to bed earlier. Earlier is always better, without a doubt. So the more hours of sleep you get before midnight, you're going to get more rejuvenating sleep. There's a couple factors to this. One, at night, you're supposed to be turning things down. It's supposed to be the yin time of the day, the quieter time of the day, not the work time of the day, more of the anabolic phase. It's called the kapha phase, right? Kapha phase, 6 to 10 at night. And also in traditional Chinese medicine, you have to be in bed by 10, but between 10 and 2, you're doing a lot of detoxification of the body. You're really rejuvenating, healing the liver, kidneys towards the earlier AM morning hours. So you can believe in whatever form of medicine that you want. I believe in all of them. I believe they all have a lot of wisdom to them. So what we need to look at is we have advanced scientific studies. We have the wisdom of Ayurveda, the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine. What we need to do is listen to going to bed earlier. Why? So that we wake up with more energy, right? So then you can go about achieving all your goals that we talk about on these Motivation and Mindset Mondays. That's why I'm doing a sleep-based show on a Motivation and Mindset Monday. It's so that you can wake up with the energy to go out there and really live your best life. So you create the body you want, the health you want, the relationships you want, the career you want, the spirituality that you want. You can do it, but it's hard to do it because you have to push. You have to push through if you don't have the energy. But if you have the energy, everything flows. It's easier to have the ambition and the drive when you have the energy. It takes more willpower when you don't, right? When you have the energy, you're looking for things to do. When you don't have the energy, you're forcing yourself to do those things. Okay, so let's go into 7 tips I want to give you just to be able to get those 4 to 5 deeper sleep cycles. And if you want to know how to get to bed earlier, I will link up all the previous shows in the show notes. All right, so my first one is this. I need you to create a new sleep timing schedule. If you go to bed right now at midnight, I don't need you to go to bed at 9:30 p.m. I know it's not going to happen. I live in the real world. I get it. I used to go to bed 1 a.m., or so every morning. I couldn't fall asleep before midnight anyway, so I was like, why am I going to go to bed early? It just doesn't make any sense. Plus, I like to stay up late. I enjoy that. I'd like to do it to this day. But it's detrimental for our overall health. And in the long run, it's so hard to have more energy than if you fight the natural rhythms of the earth, right? I mean, we're part of the earth. I know we live in homes. I know we have electricity. I know we have Wi-Fi. I know you can listen on a podcast through earbuds now, right? I know you can do all those things and they're amazing. But never forget, the more in tune we are, literally in tune, vibrating with the vibrations of nature. And for anybody who thinks that that's not scientific, it is, right? With the same harmonization as nature. You can actually measure this in hertz, right? You can actually measure these things. The more in harmony you are, the more energy you will have. There's no doubt about that, right? So what I need you to do, if you go to bed at midnight or 1 or 2, whatever it might be, simply work back your bedtime. Take as long as you need to, 15 minutes each week, 15 each week. That's it. So if you were going to bed at midnight, go to bed at 11:45. You're not going to see a difference. Big deal, 11:45. Then the next week, 11:30. Then 11:15. And then 11, 10:45, 10:30. You get the point, right? Pretty soon you're going to bed. Now, maybe you never go to bed before 10:30. Okay, fine. But that's 90 minutes now more sleep before midnight, where you got 0 before. And if you go to bed by 10:30, you could wake up at 6:30. If you're used to waking up at 7:38 when you go to bed at midnight, well, now you're going to get an extra half hour of sleep anyways, but much more quality sleep. And you're going to have an extra hour to hour and a half in the morning to yourself. That is why I'm preaching going to bed earlier. Because if you go to bed earlier, you can wake up before the rest of the world. You can get your quiet time in. It's why I wake up at 5:30. I like having my time, okay? It's not selfish. Because I know if I get some of my time, then I can give all the rest of my time away to everyone that I care for my practice, to my team, to my 2 girls, to my wife, to everyone. And I don't feel bad about it, right? I don't resent anyone else, feel like, I have no time to myself. Well, I made some time early in the morning, right? I know that I have that time. So that's what I'm looking for. So I want you to start to reset that sleep timing. And then I'll get to it at the very end. It's number 7 of why you're going to do this. Number 2 is this. Keep your alarm clock away from you. I don't want to use cliches right now, but I was about to, but I'm not going to. Keep your alarm clock away from you. Make yourself get out of bed. Do not hit the snooze button. Why? Because if you hit the snooze button, you're going to fall back into another sleep cycle. And people wonder why they're groggy when they wake up. Now, it takes about a week of getting used to this. When your alarm clock gets off, you get out of bed. That's it. You start your day. Drink your lemon water if you'd like to. Do all the things that you want that I've spoken about with morning routines. Wash, put some cold water on your face just to wake you up. That's what I always do every morning, just kind of massage my face, wake up, and then you start the day. You greet the day, okay? Really important. And also, you can wake up to light. You've heard me before talk about my wake light, right? I've spoken about this before. If you don't know what it is, just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, type in wake light, and you'll see the recommendation. If you wake up to light, you don't even need to wake up to an alarm siren, right? Nothing worse than waking up to an alarm siren to scare you out of your sleep. A wake light wakes you up to chirping birds if you don't get up by the time the light has reached its max. It's amazing, right? Well, you can also set it on your phone. You can set your phone to whatever you'd like to wake up. Wake up gently, okay? Wake up out of the sleep. Right away, get some light. Open the blinds. Like, I live in the city, so I use blackout shades, right? But that's why I have the wake light. Remember, if you want to put the circadian rhythm to the test, do this. Keep your blinds, shades completely open if you don't live outside the city. If you live outside the city, keep your windows slightly open at night. You will wake up to the sunlight. So if you're trying to reset your sleep cycle, simple, easy to do. I always give people the 3-week tent challenge. If you really believe that you're a nocturnal creature and you have a nocturnal circadian rhythm, head on out during the nice months, summertime, late spring, early fall. Head out into the woods. Take a 3-week sabbatical. Okay? You want to reset your sleep cycle to get it back to a normal schedule? Within maximum of 3 weeks, without a maximum, right? Maximum of 3 weeks, you'll be falling asleep a couple hours after it gets dark by 9:30, and you'll be waking up when the sun rises around 6:30 or so. You can't help not to, because initially you're not going to fall asleep until 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever it is. But when you get woken up 5 hours later, you're going to be tired. That's only going to go on for so long. By the end of the day, you're going to be exhausted. Guess what? You'll be going to bed by 9. You will be, for sure, right? So we can do this. So let's mimic that. Let's get some light first thing in the morning. All right. Number 4 is this. If for whatever reason you're traveling, or in the very beginning you need to reset a sleep cycle, splash that cold water on your face, or get into a warmer shower and then do some cold blasts of cold water. What will it do? It will wake you out of that sleep cycle. Now, I'm not a proponent of this for people that are especially exhausted because you're stimulating dopamine. You're stimulating adrenaline. Those people don't need to be stimulated. They actually need to rejuvenate and repair. However, if you need to pull yourself out of a sleep cycle, this will do it. Just don't push this too hard for too long, especially if you are an ectomorph or vata-based body type. Number 5 is this. If you're going to drink caffeine, let's take in 200 milligrams or less per day. It's about a small to medium-sized coffee. Actually, Starbucks is 272 milligrams for a small, right? A Dunkin' Donuts is 144. You can see why Starbucks is so popular, right? It's essentially almost twice a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's a next level speed right there. So when we're looking at this, though, keep in mind, keep it before lunch. Why? Because coffee can last 6 to 12 hours in the system because it has a strong half-life. Caffeine, I should say, not coffee, right? And tea is different. If you use green tea, it has theobromine, has some L-theanine, and it's not going to have a sharper spike or as strong. So you might use a cup of green tea after lunch rather than coffee. Also, some people are also slow oxidizers, and you can see this on your genetics. Slow oxidizers are not going to remove that coffee as well. Some people, fast oxidizers of caffeine, well, they can remove it pretty quickly. Some people can have a cup of coffee after dinner and they still fall asleep. Well, they're a fast oxidizer typically of caffeine. All right, number 6 is this. Create a morning routine. When you begin to wake up earlier, you don't want to wake up earlier without a plan, right? So if you're waking up, your goal, because you're going to get 15 minutes, right? Because you're going to go to bed 15 minutes earlier, all right? Maybe you just get more sleep. So first, just get 8 hours. Then after that, start to come up with, what am I going to do with the extra 15? What am I going to do with the extra 30? Hopefully you take that time to make yourself a smoothie. Then maybe do some bodyweight exercises or stretches. Maybe you do 15 minutes of meditation. Maybe you do 15 minutes of reading. Remember, choose whatever it is that you want to do in order to accomplish your goals. So when people say that they don't have enough time in the day, well, we're giving you back an hour a day. What are you going to do with that hour a day? Because that hour a day, I mean, think about it. Hour a day, 30 hours. 30 hours, we're looking at that per month, okay? Now, if we're looking at 30 hours per month, we're looking at 360 hours per year. I hope I did the math right there. Now, that's a lot of hours to accomplish something, right? If you give yourself 30 hours a month, what are we talking about? We're talking about 2-3 books read minimum. I mean, doing a certification, studying, like doing all sorts of things. You can accomplish some amazing things. So this leads me now to point number 7. You have to know your why. Why are you waking up earlier? Because for the first week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're like, I don't really want to do this, right? I don't really want to go to bed earlier. I like watching TV late at night. I like doing this. I like doing that. But you're not going to like those things as much as you do seeing yourself not let your life slide away, right? Move by you. What you need to think is this. What is my why? That is why I'm waking up early, because I'm moving towards my goals. I need to read more. And I need to read more. And all the reason I have to read more is because I need to learn more about what? Is it relationships? Is it career? Right? Is it that I need to wake up early so I can do my exercise because I don't do it at the end of the day because life gets in the way? Or do I need to wake up earlier so that I can prep my meals for the day? So that I eat right? So that I stay on track? Those are all very valid reasons. But you just have to have your why. That's it. Maybe you just say, I just need my quiet time. I want to sit down. I want to just have like a quiet seated meditation with a cup of herbal tea before the kids get up. And that's my quiet time so that I'm centered and I can take a shower without anyone bothering me. And then I can give myself and I'll have more patience for my kids and my family. That's a great reason, right? And then the kids, they get a little older. They're not going to be bothered as much as, okay, well, then what am I going to use the hour for? So you can come up with any scenario you want. But there's so many people right now being held back from achieving their goals because they have more excuses than they do solutions. What we want to think about on these Motivation and Mindset Mondays is our why, always our why. Because nothing is easy to do. It's always easier to not do. It's so much easier to go to bed later, to get less sleep, to wake up later, to be rushing against the clock in the morning, to get to work, to get the kids to school, all of those things. It's easier in terms of not having a planet, but that's not an easier life. An easier life is actually discipline and routines. It might not sound exciting, but believe me, it is because of all the things that you're going to accomplish. And when you look back each week and each month and you see everything that you've done in your life to begin moving forward, and again, it's a zigzag back and forth, but at the end of the month, you are without a doubt much further ahead than you were the last month, right? And at the end of the year, you get 12 of those months. And it's the accumulation factor. We are literally the sum of all the actions, all the thoughts, all the feelings that we've had in our life. And we want to give you more of those positive feelings. We want you to pursue more happiness in your life, pursue more of your passions, and move towards your purpose. So hopefully you understand by now, after this show, that the way to wake up with more energy, the way to never wake up tired again, is to begin to reset that sleep cycle, to wake up earlier, which means you're going to go to bed a little bit earlier. And the reason you're going to do that is because you have such a powerful why that excites you to get you out of bed every morning. You don't want to hit the snooze button, and you want to go out there and get after life. Hopefully today's show was helpful. If it was, as always, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.